Okay, yay. Okay, I'm going to. Hold on. Ken?
We are all learning every moment of every day.
Well, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, there's no better hot plate to be on than to do it when you got like lots of people around. Okay,
Yes.
I did it. I did it. I remember the first one that we did. Ken, you were so cute. You're like, just make me co-host. I'm like, I don't know how to do it. Anyway, hi, everyone.
Hi,
Happy
Mary.
Monday. Happy Monday. Monday Magic with Ken Close and Lori Falk. And I am just so happy to be here. My name's Mary DaSilva, and I'm an epigenetic, I'm an Epigeneer in training, but I feel like I'm learning so much every day. And we couldn't think of a better topic than the holidays, Christmas, the holidays, Hanukkah, whatever you call it in your world. So I thought it was so cute. Ken sent what we used for the invitation, that picture of a family with a Christmas tree. And I love this line because every family has that weirdo. And if you don't know who that weirdo is, it's probably you. Okay. So we're in such an incredible time of the season. And I love that we have these two brilliant people who are going to help us unpack epigenetics and what's going on and how we can become smarter people during the holidays. And I'm just looking at my notes. So I have to say that my journey of learning in the last almost 2 years has been short of amazing, and I learn every day. And I think during the holidays, this is what's, at least recently, I was driving in my car, and I heard one of the announcers I listened to XM Satellite, and she said something really interesting. And of course, I responded out loud when she said, "It isn't the holidays unless you have a family dysfunctional event." And I went, no more. I choose me. I choose happy. I choose what I want to participate. And of course, all of us have memories. We have, and then we also have the not so good memories. And what we're going to talk about tonight, I think, is beyond timely. And that is that our ancestral DNA doesn't necessarily have to be attached to us, and that we have choices, and that we can make whatever the holiday season is, whether it's the 4th of July or it's Christmas, that we can choose with our body and a participant with our mind and body to have the joy that we want. So I'm going to pass it over to Ken, and he is going to share. And then Lori is, and then we're just going to go on this journey. So get your popcorn or whatever it is that you're going to get, your reindeer cookies, and just sit back and go on a journey with us and learn how we can heal ourselves and have some fun at it as well. So take it away, Ken.
Wow, thanks a bunch. And you ladies look amazing.
Okay, this hat's coming off now. I'm roasting.
The best of ideas, it's like we're celebrating the holidays, right? And it's funny how we get together as families, and we're talking about the subject tonight being that the epigenetic influence on us when we get together with family over the holidays. And there tends to be some traditions, right? With families, people have certain things they do every season, every year, whether it be like Mary said, either 4th of July, but Christmas, this time of year. There's a couple of things to think about. In a lot of parts of the world, it's winter, right? And what kind of things change in the winter? We're exposed to less sun. Yes. I mean, sometimes, like where I'm at, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and it snowed today, by the way. I had some snow when I woke up, just a little flurries. And then by the end of the day, everything's snowy. And inevitably, now people have lived here for the entire length of this planet in this region, and we know we get snow. I mean, people should know that by now, right? But what happens every time you have the first snow and people are out driving around? They forget that they got to go to work, give themselves a little bit more stopping room, a little bit more maneuverability room, and they forget that that it's slick, or some of the driving habits have to shift and change. And they're on autopilot, so often on autopilot. And these patterns tend to show up. But the hard way of learning is when you get into an accident, right? That's not an easy way to learn. I would personally rather learn in a state of joy, love, and peace, as opposed to a state of suffering or disorder or chaos, right? And so, like I said, we just got snow today, and I welcome the snow. It's part of why I live in the Pacific Northwest, to be exposed to 4 full seasons, let my body acclimate and evolve throughout this more various or wide range of environmental influences. And as we're unpacking some of these subjects, what we're going to talk about is ancestral influence. So just like the family you're born into, you mother and father and the siblings, we have grandparents and great grandparents, and there are influences that are passed down for generations after generations. There's also influences that are passed down through the entire species, right? And these things are codes or systems within the DNA code that says certain things. And environment brings out the expression of those. So we could be in a family setting, and there could be, some smells of the cooking or some sounds of the music, or there's some conversation from, say, Aunt Bessie, who tends to have a couple too many martinis, and suddenly things start to expand, and there are triggers. There's things that happen. These built-in mechanisms that are in our genetic code that will tend to express themselves. What they need, though, to express themselves is they need a trigger, environmental influence. And then they also, though, need our consciousness to accept, believe, and surrender, and allow the actual genetic form to come out in our body. Say somebody mentions an old episode that happened when I was 12 and in front of my friends, and suddenly I'm embarrassed. And then my body changes, right? I start having the emotions of embarrassment or fear or shame or whatever might be popping up because of a family member might have mentioned something that they, think is funny, right? And we start getting triggered. So these things are built in already from either our memory or from our family tree or even from our entire species. But we don't have to allow them to take hold and manifest and become part of this present moment. So Lori, I would love to hear your story about some of these ancestral influences that wind up getting passed down and show up at the dinner table, perhaps, or in inopportune moments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Mary. And a huge welcome to everybody here. So I've been studying epigenetics for about the last 10 or 12 years, and it's in my awareness way more than the average person. But there's a pattern that I actually saw happen in my family throughout a couple of different generations. And so if you go back to when I was 16 years old and my grandfather died, and my dad's brothers basically decided that even though my father was the executor of the estate, they wanted to take the control away from him and they wanted to be in charge. And that in and of itself wasn't that big of a deal because my father was very amiable and had no problem with that, but it caused a rift in the family. And for years, like 10 plus years, we didn't get invited to anything. Well, come forward. About 15 years ago, my father passes away. And every holiday gathering that we'd be at, if ever any topic came up about when he was no longer here, he would make this crazy comment. Like, what do I care? You guys can argue about it all you want. I'll be dead. Now, that was just my dad. That was his sense of humor. That was his personality. And I never worried about it because my dad was so healthy. I expected him to be here still. So as it ended up, I was the executor of the estate, and my sister didn't like that. And as a result, she got very upset. And similar to what happened with my dad and his brothers, she essentially excommunicated me from the family and told me I couldn't see her children anymore. So similar pattern, same thing. And I'm not going to lie to you, it was devastating. It was absolutely crushing to be that alone on a holiday because I only have one sibling. And I was so close to my nieces and my nephew. Well, through the course of using Healy, and I know for sure that it's the coherence program. I know it in my gut and my soul. I started running that coherence program the day we got it, and I ran it day after day after day. And I found myself like opening up and doing things that I had never done before. Things that were really heart opening, taking chances where I'd never taken them before. And I saw a post by, actually it was Denny Robinson, who's one of the higher up people in ASEA. And it was a poem, and the name of the poem was "The Journey is Too Short." And it was this story about life and how we get our feelings hurt and how things happen along the way and we hold grudges. And every stanza, it ended with "Forgive and forget, the journey is too short." So I randomly on a Friday night sent it to my sister. And I usually didn't contact her, but I sent her this poem. And a few days later, it was a Wednesday, it was the 15th anniversary of my father's death. And she messaged me on Facebook and she said, "It's been 15 years since Dad passed away. It's time to forgive and forget. The journey is too short." So thank you, God. Thank you, Healy. Thank you, Marcus Schminke, for our coherence program, because I don't think that would have happened otherwise. So long and the short of it, that was in May. And fast forward to Thanksgiving. Now I'm sitting there with my sister and she's telling me about how Monday was going to be her 35th wedding anniversary and she was getting a new diamond ring. And she was really excited about it. And she said, so it's all working out really, really well, because she had gotten my mom's wedding ring and she had her wedding ring. Now she was going to have this new wedding ring. And she has 3 daughters. So wasn't that perfect? And I said, well, that's great. They can each have one. Well, she said, yeah. And they can have whichever one they want. I don't care. I'll be dead anyway. They can fight about it. And the observer in me just went, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And I just started laughing, right? Because I'm in my head, I'm going, you have got to be kidding me. We are not repeating this pattern, all the, coaching technical things that were going on in my brain. But the observer in me just went, I have a better idea. I don't think we want to repeat that pattern. But I said it in a lighthearted, loving way. I said, you know what? I think you should decide. In fact, if you don't decide, I'm going to sit there and move your hand on a piece of paper and write it down, because it's that didn't work last time, did it? And we just busted up laughing. So what I guess the moral of this story is that Healy works. I mean, I know, because Healy's been helping me because I run it every day, that I'm in a far greater place than I ever have been in my life. Even though I've done personal growth work for 3 decades, what's happened with Healy is incredible. So for me to be in a situation like that could have really triggered me in the past, it didn't, not at all, not in the least. And the more important thing is that I could be that observer and I could help her to see it, and I could prevent her daughters from carrying on that same pattern. And this is where Mary would go, see the tears? I'm starting to get just choked up even telling you, because I'm just so grateful. And I encourage you guys to really run these programs and do it regularly and consistently. As a coach, I've been coaching for 20 years. I've never, ever seen anything that gets to the root, the epigenetic ancestral root of all of these subconscious limiting beliefs. And it does it in a few minutes. It does what it would take any great coach 6 months to get to. So if you don't have the coaching module yet, please give yourself a Christmas gift. It is absolutely essential. So that's my little story about Thanksgiving and ancestral influences that can be stopped.
I love that story. I mean, that's phenomenal.
That's incredible.
I think these stories give us validation right into our real lives, making it real. And as Lori said, you guys saw, and I saw she talked about the emotion that pops up based on the concepts and the experience, the rehearsal of what that was going on. There's some emotions, the gratitude for what tool you have now, and of course the caring that you have for people in the world everywhere that should have this technology. And I want to expand on that too, because those if we understand how this body is built, know that the influence, 800,000 cells per second. You've heard me say this before, right? This is just the nuts and bolts of how we're built. There's a divine intelligence that's orchestrating that entire process. 800,000 cells per second. And within that code, the genetic code, there is possibilities for everything, because up until this point right now, everything that's been understood by our species is in the code. So we could literally take one of us, one genetic code from one human being, and reproduce the species, right? Because the information's there. And not just your ancestors. You know, we talk about and we think about, I'm exposed to experiences with my family. We're talking about the holidays. You're at the dinner table, or you're at a function, a Christmas Eve function, whatever it is. And we think it's just the stuff within our family, and the dynamics that live in that ancestry being just our bloodline. And it's not. I mean, it goes a long ways. The code remembers everything that was ever built into it. And so that kind of moves us into our next subject, which is called I want to talk about the patterns in the field. Mary, do you?
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you turn up the volume on your device? Please,
Yes.
please.
How's
There we
that?
go.
Sorry
Got him.
about
He's
that.
back. It's okay. Yay. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I hope you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
So moving from that ancestral influence and all that genetic coding that goes along with it from the entire species, and then moving forward into kind of our next subject I wanted to talk about, which was the patterns within the field, these patterns that exist within that entire code structure. And I have a story around my family, where I have a sibling who years ago said, I'm going to go get the test to see if I have the genetic predisposition code for cancer. And I said, wait, well, what is that? What is a predispositioned code for cancer? And she said, well, you know, there's a code within your DNA that can tell whether you're going to have cancer or not. And I said, oh, okay. And you know, I'm at a place with my siblings that I just kind of allow certain things. And so she was very, very adamant about getting the test, and went about getting the blood test, and came back and said, oh my God, I've got that code. I've got that predisposition to cancer. And I said, now it's time for us to sit down, because I want to tell you that we all have it. The species has the potential for a cancerous, or I should say the body has the potential for a cancerous existence. But if it was predisposed to your cancer, to your genetic code, you would have had it a long time ago. You would have been born with it, right? We're born with a certain number of fingers and toes, a certain number of lungs. We have certain types of parts of the body. We're born with those things. But all of the influence, all the patterns, that's a pattern for our species. The patterns in the field are for anything and everything. We can create a disorder, right? At any time in our lives. We just need to follow some certain rules. And I had this conversation with my sibling about the rules, whether you believe it's God's rules, universal law, the law of attraction, whatever it is, there's still going to be a code written with a 97% being an adaptive part of the code, adapting to your environment, to your beliefs, to your perceptions, adapting to whatever's going on in your life, stress levels and struggles, right? Or joy and peace. So there's a big portion of the genetic code that says what type or what degree should I evolve into? And the small percent, the 3%, essentially says it's going to be a skin cell or a bone cell or a muscle cell or whatever. But what type, what kind of a skin cell do I need to be able to survive in the environment that I'm in? So these patterns are all available to every one of us, and they are adaptive. That we, as a consciousness, as an individual, as an awareness, can propagate into existence and be actually a body in space and time. The 97% of that code that's influential or influenced upon, this is where Healy interacts, okay? Because it's an energetic signal. And if we have an attitude or an expression of an energy of unworthiness or shame or guilt or jealousy or anger, whatever those are, then the cell has to be prepared for that. And Healy comes in with its frequencies and energy to help regulate that. And as you heard Lori talk about the coherence program, bringing her to a point, and most of the time we're not even aware of it. There's my cuckoo clock. Sorry, folks. A lot of times we're not even aware of what's going on in the background. We just suddenly realize one day, I just don't act like that anymore. Or I have those patterns are changed, and we can look back on history and see them. We probably won't see them in the present moment, but when we look back on history, we'll see those patterns change. So there's things that trigger that in this present moment to get those genetic codes to turn on. So anything you guys want to add on those patterns that we're talking about available to all of us?
Well, weren't we talking about patterns in music earlier?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And, this year, what I realized was that a lot of my favorite Christmas music was still on CDs, and I don't have a CD player anymore. And the whole hassle of switching over to the MP3s and all that. And I said, you know what? That's okay. It's time for a change. Because, every year I play that same music over and over and over again. And it would just immediately bring to the surface whatever place I was at where I heard that song that elicited a specific emotion. And so this year, instead, I have a subscription to Sirius XM, and I just pulled up couple of Christmas stations, and it was different Christmas music. So it was still music of the season, still spirited, still happy, but it wasn't triggering all those old memories. And I felt better. And in the same vein, as I'm feeling better while I'm decorating my tree. Because the other thing is even visually looking at another pattern, right? Looking at an ornament, where it came from, who gave it to you. I didn't go to the store and just buy ornaments for a tree. I've collected these for decades, and they all carry a lot of emotion and a lot of memory. And I just feel like I must be in a healthier place because of Healy, because I was able to decorate that tree and just appreciate the goodness of the person who gave it to me, as I had let go of the angst or the negative emotions. So it was kind of magical. just to make that shift and have that awareness.
Lori, that is beyond, it's beyond perfect. I think the older we get, the more family dynamics, the more stories, the more like you just can't believe. You look back and you go, oh, wow, that existed, that happened. There is no question that the creative homeopathy, the coherence programs, the coaching, I'm a different person, and my ability to be able to look at things from maybe like I'm almost looking at myself from another perspective, another dimension that I have. And we were talking about this earlier. I have choices. I'm in charge, darn it. I choose not to be sucked into whatever that might be. I choose joy. I choose happy. I choose love. I choose, right now, I got my artificial tree in 3 sections. I choose to say, it's really okay. I remember when we were kids, I was telling you both earlier, I talked with one of my neighbors. He's adorable. I was all dressed up to go to a party, and I'm like, I haven't been dressed up in a while. And I think when I get home, I'm just going to go to bed with this outfit on. I'm just so excited. But what he said to me, I go, where are you going? And he's got his flip-flops on and he's walking through our neighborhood. And we have a guy that comes through and he's got a tractor and he dresses up as Santa Claus and he drives through. And I've been here for 3 years and it's just such a nice tradition. And I looked at him and I go, how old were you when you stopped believing in Santa Claus? He goes, there is a Santa Claus. I go, right on. But I will tell you, I know when I was 12 years old, and I feel like my brother is like, he narked on my parents. He said, there's no Santa Claus. And I'm like, yeah, there is. So I have that in my mind. But at that moment when my neighbor said to me, there's still a Santa Claus, I said, yes, it is. And I felt the energy. So we can trigger that. We have choices. We're aware. We can be all those things.
I love that. And I'd invite you guys to put in the chat, what are some of the things that some patterns that you are now aware of, maybe some things in your family, some patterns that you may be seeing, and now perhaps you can have a choice or some sort of a different pattern within yourselves in terms of how to respond. So I, invite you guys, put some things in there. Tell us what you're struggling with, if there's anything in terms of patterns. We're going into the holidays, and the reason for this call is essentially to kind of build some tools, some mindsets, some understandings, and then also bring in where Healy can actually help moderate a lot of this stuff. These patterns are there, and even though we may have awareness around them, they will still bring up something, and because it's built into the blueprint of the body. It takes a while. I said 800,000 cells per second. Some of those cells of your body turns over every day. Some turn over once a week, like digestive cells. The inner linings of your stomach about once a week. Blood cells about every 3 months, right? They turn over, so they're new, they're different. Muscle cell about every 200 days, brain cells once a year, bone is several years. So the point is that this information, remember I said the code, 97% is adaptive, reading its environment. So over time, if you continue to change some of the influence of those codes, you're going to change the different systems, organs, and cells within the body. So we've got to just be aware. It doesn't happen necessarily overnight, but Healy is I call it my Kung Fu because it literally gives me an opportunity to program in some help, right? It's not a replacement, but it sure is an ally, right? And helps me to program in some proper information and some proper frequencies to then 800,000 cells per second, however many seconds I'm running that particular program, it's going to influence my structure. And the more I do it, the more I become aware. And this is how this nurture versus nature starts to happen. Up until this point, we've been nurtured into a natural expression of the body, the epigenetic expression. Now it's natural for us to act, believe, and perceive in certain ways. It's natural, right? And if you guys were seeing Lori or talking to one of us about a coaching things you want to change in your life, and we said to you, here, I would love it if you could practice this week. Like do X% more of this, whatever this is. And you would start that and feel uncomfortable, right? It'd be feeling odd, strange, uncomfortable because it's new and the body's not built for it. Same thing if you're in an exercise program, right? You start pumping some iron or getting on a treadmill, the body's not built for it just yet. But that 97% of the adaptive gene is going to change your body to prepare it for when you do it next time. So this is kind of where we're if we filter into how nurture versus nature, things are natural because of the codes in the field, the genetic expressions from ancestors, but we can nurture that into something new by the proper interaction with thought and with Healy. Lori, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, as you were saying all that, Ken, what came to me was, why don't we nurture ourselves? We have this amazing device, right? And we know how it works. It works physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually simultaneously. And the main way that it works is through the power of intention. So if you have the coaching module, great. If you don't, I think most of you have creative homeopathy. So what I would encourage each of you to do is to write an intention. You've got 3 weeks before the big holiday for a lot of people, and set an intention. And if you're not going to a big gathering, even the smaller gatherings along the way, set intentions for what you want that to look like. I attended a family Christmas gathering, and everyone was loving and kind and got along better than they ever have before. Everything took place with grace and ease, and there was so much compassion and caring for one another. Really write that down and set that intention. I actually did this 20 years ago before I had a Healy, and called in the angelic realm and asked the angels to help. That was the best Christmas my family had ever had. So now that we have the Healy, well, still have angels, of course. You're talking to the angel lady. So, but even given that, just set that intention and then run creative homeopathy or run the coaching module and find what are the beliefs that are in your way of that happening. And what will happen if you do that and then you run that program every day for like maybe 6 to 12 minutes between now and the event, guess what? That will shift within you, and you will walk into that event a different person, and you won't be carrying your baggage. And because you're coming in from a place of more love, it will permeate throughout the entire gathering, I assure you, especially if it's family, because we're clearing backwards and forwards 7 generations. So help your nieces, help your grandkids, help all those people you love and care about so much, and do your own work.
100%. The clearing portion, of course, we are a body in space and time. There's this 3-dimensional body. We have an energy body that has a lot of, it can change in a moment, by the way. The nervous system within this body, it can upregulate very quickly, very quickly. The problem is there's a lag time between the nervous system. In other words, let me put it this way. If you were to read a book about building a birdhouse, let's do it this way. Let's build a snowman. So we're going to build a snowman. We read a book on how to build a snowman. If you've never ever been in snow ever in your life, because some people have not, right? They're in different regions of the planet. And so they read a book about building a snowman, think it'd be super fun and awesome to build a snowman. Okay, so you've got some cognitive information about how to build a snowman, but if you've never ever actually did that, you wouldn't realize how cold your hands get. You wouldn't realize that certain snow packs better than other snow. You wouldn't maybe realize that snowballs get really heavy. You try to put that head that you made that's huge, bigger than you, up on top of the pile, it gets really hard to do. So there's certain things you don't realize because you haven't actually worked on and done the project. And so building this information into the cells and the DNA of the body takes a little bit of time. Same thing in reverse order. Taking things out of the body takes time. The nervous system, you can learn something in an instant, but being able to perform it and make the body do the action, now that's a different story. That takes some practice. It takes some actual tangible motor skills, nuts and bolts, movements, right? And then building that experience within the brain. So this is, again, where what we nurture into existence based on actions, based on influence from outside sources. And then the other thing I would love to move into is never forgetting, really, and Mary mentioned this, who's in charge, right? And I want to ask you guys, if I was to ask you, and just maybe comment in the chat, if you're struggling with anything in your life, do you struggle more with maybe the emotions that run away with your body? Or do you struggle with maybe more the thoughts that run away with your mind? I want you to think about that for a second. Now, honestly, there's going to be both that are intertwined, but typically we have one that may dominate over the other. How many times does the emotion just seem to all of a sudden creep up out of nowhere, right? It's a smell or a song, as Lori mentioned, maybe the cooking of the food, especially if we're maybe working on weight management, right? And by the way, we're going to talk about that next month. But what if we're working on weight management and you smell like an apple pie? We're like, oh my gosh, right? It triggers certain responses autonomically within the body. And so, but we have to remember, okay, so who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? Is it the body, the emotional body? Is it the mind, the monkey mind? So I would invite you, maybe comment, what is it? Is there one that works more so over the other? And what I found myself was this body. My body would tend to be an emotion, seemed to come out of nowhere, right? And I didn't realize that actually it requires a thought. It requires some perceptive interface first from whatever's going on in the outside world to be digested and filtered through the mind and then express within the body, right? But yet sometimes the emotion comes on so quick that we don't even realize that there is a thought or there is some kind of generation, some filter that creates that. So these are some of the stuff we have to realize. Who's in charge? Who's in charge? And maybe identify some of those things that we can, not so much because we want to negate it, but so that we can understand it and become friends with it. Michael Singer writes a book called Untethered Soul. Maybe you guys are familiar with that, where he talks about the inner roommate, the monkey mind, and being able to understand it. Why is it constantly giving me advice, good and bad, sometimes at the same time? Why is that happening? And understanding that mind is trying to make sense of the outside world, becoming friends with it, becoming friends with our body, and knowing that we are an awareness that's outside of all that can elongate a choice point before we get angry at Aunt Bessie for drinking too much or whatever the case might be, right? The trigger that just told us that this is, oh, there's my family again. You know what I mean? And then go from there. So anything else? Lori, did you want to bring anything else up about that?
I can. We have a new member. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm looking at the chat and she just joined Healy yesterday. And her question is, I know that's what I just said. Her name's Allison. Hi, Allison. Welcome to this amazing community. And she says, I'm a nutritional therapist and I see patterns of eating around the holidays with my clients. And as the emotional eating that may occur around family, oh, ditto, I get all that. How can the frequencies help my clients?
I love this question because I think, Laura, you kind of touched on it. You touched on how by running on, I mean, we could use our own consciousness and say, oh, I'm going to choose this program because it has a cool name. You know, I want to use mental balance, right? Oh, that sounds great. Who wouldn't want mental balance? I'm going to do that. Or well-being. Oh, who wouldn't want that? I like that. But we don't, what's happening, think about what's happening. And Lori's kind of touched on this perfectly, and I'll let you unpack it. But the coherence program, what's the definition of coherence? It's being flexible, yet strong, right? There's some strength built into the flexibility so that we don't break under pressure, under high winds or turbulence or stress. But these are some of the things that, of course, Healy's got an amazing ability to do an analysis and give us a very, very clear feedback as to what should be our path. But Lori, in terms of what you were using, how you were using the coherence and how things just shifted within you, maybe you could open that up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly on your way to any of these gatherings, run coherence or run it while you're there. Because if you're running it with the coil while you're there, you're creating that 6-foot radius around you. So it's impacting not just you, it's impacting anyone you're talking with. So it kind of shifts the energy, it shifts the energy and puts a sense of unconditional love into the air. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. And when it comes to concerns about weight issues and things like that, or emotional eating around the holidays, again, use the programs, use creative homeopathy, use the coaching module, set the intention. And if you, for some reason, don't have creative homeopathy, as some of the newer devices, I'm not sure they all do they, Ken?
Say that again.
Do all the devices have creative homeopathy now?
Everything that has the resonance has that built into that scan. Yeah, that database.
It's an amazing program. Beyond.
So there's 348, even if you don't have the coaching module, there's 348 potential subconscious beliefs in that creative homeopathy. So if you set the intention to have a peaceful holiday, or a holiday where you're in control of how you're going to handle yourself, and that you're going to only make healthy food choices for yourself, and you're not going to do the emotional eating, you set that as a strong intention, and then you run creative homeopathy, you're going to get to the core of what's triggering that. So if you start that tonight or tomorrow, I really think by the time you walk into a holiday gathering, you're going to have, if you run that program every day, because it'll be in your lists and you can rename it emotional eating or whatever you'd like, and run that every day. And it's in the repetitive running of those frequencies that you go in and biohack the subconscious belief. And by the time you get to the event, you're not going to be as triggered as you were in the past. You will be shocked and amazed. And when you're at the event, if you do have a negative thought that comes up, ask yourself one question. What's the next best thought? That's super easy to remember. Just what's the next best thought?
So I'm looking through some of these comments, and I will say, not that it's a general blanket statement, the creative homeopathy, since it came out, has been it's monumental for me personally. I have learned so much about my ancestral DNA, and have been working through those issues. And now I've gone from the awareness to now where I can, as Lori just said, I have choices now. I can make a decision about how I want to react And who's in charge? I'm in charge. So, some of the comments I'm looking at, and I think it probably happens to all of us, we get sucked into the family issues that go on, and then the triggers just keep going. And any rate, I'm just reading through some of these comments, and I can only say again, without beating that comment up, the creative homeopathy, if you have the resonance, is profound. You will, and really take the time to look at it, and you'll just go, holy cow, or wow, I didn't know that, but I'm willing to learn. And that's everything. If you're open to this journey, it's going to change your life.
I want to thank you guys that are commenting in here about my question about body or mind, because think about it. I mean, what Mary's talking about here too. You run these scans, the over 300 different components within that database, and it's going to pick the top 5 for you. This is the beauty of how Healy operates, by the way, is it uses a very vast array of information. The information field, it's really coming from the quantum field, and it's looking at that resource to try to give you the best answer. And the science of how that's happening is literally through electron flow. I mean, this is every cell within your body has got trillions of electrons in just one cell. And what I say, 800,000 cells per second changing within your body. Think about how much electron energy is within that transfer at 1 second. And the way that Healy interacts is it uses a quantum sensor, essentially a bridge between this outer world and this inner world. And it knows that the inner world is you because you're the client's been selected within the resonance, right? Within the scan criteria. And then it looks at the database that you've chosen as a parameter to find your healing, to find your alignment, to find your adjustment. And then it gives you the best top 5 answers within that category, right? It's not just by chance. It is by alignment with every electron in you. And I can't even tell you the number, how big that is. We wouldn't even be able to understand that size of number. So this is perfect alignment. And when we are battling with the body as an emotional body, or we're battling with the mind as a monkey mind, that's still your electron flow. That's still you. And this information is working on both. And I asked to see if you guys would talk about which one tends to be your biggest challenge, because if it's the body that you're challenged with, there's history built in there, right? The cell structures have history. The cell structures have patterns. And the moment that we stop thinking in the same way, again, they're both working together, but the moment we stop thinking in the same way, it's going to change those patterns. 800,000 cells per second. And the moment we use the frequency systems that we have available, Healy, to interface with that 97% of the adaptive portion of the genetic code, the moment we start doing that, then we're going to have a different physical body. And if you guys are familiar with the vagus nerve, the vagus nerve is a system giving information back and forth between the brain and the body. But 64% of that information is from the body to the brain, giving the brain reinforcement of what the body needs. Okay, so think about this. The mind creates the emotion creates the feedback to the mind propagates the emotion by thought. So it's a cycle. So, Lori, anything else you want to kick in there?
Yeah, someone was asking about creative homeopathy and if it addresses the physical stuff. And so that's a yes and no. Mm-hmm. It really addresses the emotions. But when you're addressing the emotions, you're changing the environment that the physical lives in. And that's the key to the epigenetic piece of healing, really, is that you can carry your family lineage, ancestral, physical DNA. But if you change the epigenetic emotional DNA and you shift the beliefs and the patterns and you don't react the way your ancestors did, whether that's your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, etc., then the chances of you triggering that physical DNA are slim to none, because you're not going to be having the same thoughts and beliefs and patterns that the people did that actually triggered the DNA and got the diseases.
100%.
But if you're looking for a physical issue, that's not necessarily your direct route. This is to find what you need to heal to prevent it from triggering that physical DNA.
These emotions in the body. So think about this as emotions are to the body as thought is to the brain. So with the brain in action, when you is mind, it's mind, or the brain in action is thought. Okay. And those generate peptides or chemicals that go into the body to build the response, aka the emotion. Now, the emotion is assigned by you. So in other words, the feeling of maybe say tightness within this the chest and heat in the face, to one might be anger, to another might be embarrassment, right? So the emotion that's assigned to the experience is you, your choices over the years of influence from your parents and your teachers and your coaches, your environment. You've assigned meaning to a feeling within the body. We call it an emotion, but they're necessary. It doesn't matter who's making the definition, but emotion is to the body as thought is to the brain. And they both enrich the experience, because the enrichment, the emotion enriches it. How many of you guys would like to have a relationship without love? Right? Love is an emotion. It's part of having in a relationship, whether it's with your pet, with your spouse, with your parent, or with your children, right? Or with a song. Love is measured by you. And here's a little thing I want to tell you. Love or an emotion is not for anyone else. It's not for anyone else. It may be triggered by someone else, but they can't feel your emotion. They'll never be able to feel it. You can describe it all day long, but like I just got done saying, you assign meaning to it. They'll never know what your emotion of love feels like exactly. You can give comparisons, right? Oh, I love my dog so much, and they have a pet, they have a dog, and they can relate. So we can relate, but we'll never know your exact emotion. They're only yours. And love is only for you, your partner, your mate, your senses may trigger the experience in the body, but that's only for you. So think about that, folks. When you're out there with your family, you're out there on this festive time of year, you're out there with your friends, whatever reason you're out there, you're interacting, every bit of the emotion that your body's experiencing is only yours. And you're the one that is interpreting the feedback through the mind, turning that on. So it's okay to turn on emotions. Nothing wrong with that. When they run away with you, when they drive you, when they control you, when they make you do bad things or whatever, it's, things you regret. That's what we need to start working on. So we wanted to talk. I was really excited about this subject because I wanted to talk about, because we're all going to go into some kind of gathering, right? The holidays, even if you don't celebrate the holidays, even if you're not part of that belief structure, there's still more people out and about, and you're being influenced by the energy, whether you are a homebody or not. There's an umbrella of energy, a consciousness that's global, universal, by the way. And that energy is being influenced. When you're on the winning side of a ball game, right? You feel the energy. When you're on the losing side, you feel the energy. You can be sitting there in a bad mood in the middle of an amazing wedding celebration or some kind of a cool event, and you're going to have some kind of influence. Your body's going to feel it. It's absorbing that from the energy. This is the nurturing effect that we talked about earlier. So don't be afraid of emotion. Allow those emotions because they enrich your life. But if they run away with you, now we have an amazing little tool here, guys, that we can start to use to help regulate, moderate, and influence that body. So we have a little bit more control. Who's in control? Go ahead and put it in the chat.
You're in.
God. I was just going to say, never forget who's in charge. We
Yeah.
are.
You're in
With
charge.
this amazing device. Oh my gosh. Wow. This
Yes.
is
All right.
fantastic. Wow. We are in charge. And what I wanted to share with everyone, because we are doing these every month, the first Monday of every month. So January 4th, guess what we're going to talk about? Wow. 'Tis the season. 'Tis the season to talk about, I ate too much. I want to lose weight. I can't ever lose weight. How come I can't lose weight? And all these ads for take this pill, take this supplement, take this potion, blah, blah. I've lost weight with the Healy. Okay. And I have to tell you, I didn't really try that hard at it. But what I started to do was change behaviors. So we're going to talk about that on January 4th. We're going to unpack and maybe pack and take off some pounds and talk about how we're going to do it a little differently and change the mindset and train the cells. And we're going to learn from Ken and Lori. And I cannot wait because everybody wants to talk about this topic.
Hey, New Year's
I
resolution.
absolutely agree. I was going to say, like, since I've got my Healy almost 2 years ago, I have a herniated disc in my neck, so I can't work out a whole lot. And when I first got my Healy, I got it for the pain in my neck, and I was close to 300 pounds. Since getting the Healy and using it, over the past year and a half, I've lost 70 pounds without exercising. And now I'm able to, I've got enough weight off to where when I work out, it doesn't bother my herniated disc because I didn't want that full disc replacement surgery. And I can just tell you, it has changed my life inside out, my mind, my spirit, my body. When you, like a couple calls ago, Max and Taryn said they'll be, with Healy for life, they'll grow old with them. I will too. This device is remarkable and it is changing people's lives. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it.
Congratulations, Brittany. Right
Yeah,
on.
we are blessed, aren't we? For sure. For sure.
Yes.
So, Ken, Lori, anything else to add to this wonderful topic? Other than I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. Be joyful, be present, be happy, and be in charge.
In closing, what I'd like to close with is to understand one thing. At the end of every second, cells are still going to divide. There's a circadian rhythm that we're all in, right? You're going to have a gift of a sunrise and hopefully a gift of a sunset, right? That's the circadian rhythm. No matter where you are on this planet, you can't get away from that. There's a divine intelligence that's working through you, with you, and around all of you. And that's getting those cells to divide. It's operating your body. I mean, I invite you, tell your body, stop digesting my food. Stop dividing cells. Stop doing all of its natural processes. It's not going to do that because it wants to survive. It wants to continue. So at the end of the day, those cells are still going to divide. The energetic influence that you're choosing to write into that 97% of the code, that's in your hands. That's in your hands, folks. Take charge because I know you can. I love you guys.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Superman, Lori, Angel, Lori. I love all
Thank
you
you.
people. Thank you. This is awesome.
So I'd just like to say one last thing, and that is with Healy, we have the ability to have a better holiday than we've ever had before. So if you do your work and you run the frequencies and you biohack the crap out of the way, you really can have a happy holiday season. And that's what we wish for all of you. Right, Gabby?
So true. Oh my gosh. Well, seriously, happy holidays and stay tuned for how we're going to unpack the pounds on the next one on January 4th. And unpack all the stuff that goes with not being able to unpack. So Ken is going to, oh my gosh, we're going to have fun.
Yeah. All right, you
Yes,
guys.
yes.
So,
All right.
thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, everybody.
You too. Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you. Rising. Thank
Laura,
you.
you're so cute.
Thank you.
Thank you and blessings.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.